Beyond the gold records, the sold-out arenas, and the MTV rotation lies another world. These are 15 obscure heavy metal bands from 70s and 80s you need to hear. 1. Toad. Imagine the bone-rattling power of early Black Sabbath fused with the bluesy, virtuosic swagger of Cream, all hailing not from Birmingham or London, but from Basel, Switzerland. That was the magic of Toad. Formed in 1970 from the ashes of a band called Brain Ticket, this Swiss power trio released their self-titled debut in 1971, and it is a staggering piece of heavy, blues-based rock. The album is a masterclass in dynamics, from the thunderous proto-metal stomp of Cottonwood to the soulful, Zeppelin-esque balladry of Vagrant. The sheer force of the recording is something to behold. It feels less like a studio album and more like a live document of a band at the peak of its powers. The band was built around the incredible guitar work of Vic Vergiat, a player with a fiery, expressive style that could stand toe-to-toe with any of his more famous contemporaries. The rhythm section of Werner Frohlich bass and Cosimo Lampus drums was impossibly tight, laying down grooves that were both heavy and incredibly funky. Their sound was raw, powerful, and recorded with a clarity and punch that many bands would kill for even today. On tracks like They Say I'm Mad, you can hear a band playing with a chemistry and confidence that should have made them global superstars, channeling a palpable energy that feels like it could burst through the speakers. So why did they remain a secret known mostly to European collectors? Being from Switzerland, they were geographically isolated from the major UK and US music scenes. Without the backing of a major international label with promotional muscle, their incredible music struggled to cross borders. Their debut album cover, featuring a band member's girlfriend squatting to relieve herself, also likely didn't help their commercial prospects in more conservative markets. For those who discover it, Toad is a flawless gem of early heavy rock, a testament to the fact that world-class thunder could be forged anywhere. From the blues rock power of the Swiss Alps, we now journey to the UK for a raw, doomy slab of proto-metal produced by a true rock god. 2. Jerusalem. It's 1972, and Ian Gillan, the golden-throated voice of Deep Purple, decides to produce a young, unknown band. You'd expect something polished and melodic, right? What you get instead is Jerusalem. Their one and only self-titled album is one of the rawest, crudest, and most wonderfully primitive-sounding records of the entire proto-metal era. This isn't polished rock. This is the sound of clubs, sweat, and cheap amplifiers pushed to their absolute limit until the cones are about to tear. The record exudes an aura of danger and authenticity that simply couldn't be manufactured. Hailing from Salisbury, Jerusalem played a brand of heavy, doom-laden rock that felt like it was channeling the raw spirit of the MC5 through the sludgy filter of early Black Sabbath. The album is a relentless assault of fuzzed-out guitars, frantic drumming, and the wild, unhinged vocals of frontman Lyndon Williams. Tracks like Primitive Man and Hooded Eagle are exercises in pure, unrefined heaviness, with riffs that feel less written and more clawed out of raw earth. The production, overseen by Gillan, is fascinatingly raw, capturing the band's live energy rather than trying to tame it. He made the conscious choice to preserve their grit, a decision that likely sealed their commercial fate but guaranteed their underground legacy. The album's confrontational sound and controversial artwork depicting the crucifixion in a modern city made it a tough sell. It sank without a trace, and the band broke up shortly after, leaving behind this one monstrously heavy artifact. In the album's liner notes, Ian Gillan wrote, "This is the first album I have ever produced, and I am very proud of it." He saw the raw, uncompromising energy in Jerusalem that the wider world just wasn't ready for. Listening to it today feels like unearthing a genuine lost classic of the doom metal dawn. While Jerusalem channeled primitive doom, our next band was on the opposite coast of America, playing a style of metal so fast and technical it felt like it had arrived from the future. 3. Grift. In the mid-80s, the San Francisco Bay Area was the global epicenter of thrash metal. But while Metallica and Exodus were crafting a new aggressive sound, another SF band called Griffin was playing a style of speed metal so fast, so technical, and so melodic that it almost defied categorization. Their 1984 debut EP, followed by the full-length album Flight of the Griffin, is a breathtaking display of musical virtuosity and songwriting prowess that many connoisseurs of the era consider a lost masterpiece. Led by the incredible guitar duo of Rick Cooper and Michael Jastrzębski, Griffin's sound was a whirlwind of intricate, harmonized guitar riffs, blistering solos, and the soaring, high-pitched vocals of William Rocky Holland. This wasn't the chugging, down-picked aggression of thrash. This was a more refined, almost neoclassical style of speed metal, closer to early Helloween or Judas Priest on hyperdrive. Songs like Hawk the Slayer and Fire in the Sky are masterclasses in precision and speed, with a level of melodic sophistication that set them apart from their peers. Their songwriting was sharp, avoiding the fantasy tropes of many power metal bands for more direct, aggressive themes that should have appealed to a wider audience. So why aren't they mentioned in the same breath as their Bay Area brethren? It was a classic case of being a square peg in a round hole. They were too melodic and clean-sounding for the burgeoning thrash scene, but too fast and heavy for the glam-dominated mainstream. They were a band without a tribe, and their label, Shrapnel Records, known for its roster of guitar virtuosos, failed to give them the promotional push they needed to break through. For fans of early power and speed metal, Griffin remains a what-if story, a band with all the talent in the world that simply got lost in the shuffle. From the technical speed of the Bay Area, we travel back to the UK for a band whose demonic image and theatrical shows masked a truly brilliant and melodic songwriting core. 4. Demon. The new wave of British heavy metal was crowded with bands in denim and leather singing about motorcycles and metal. And then there was Demon. With their ghoulish stage costumes, elaborate horror-themed shows, and a frontman who looked like a malevolent undertaker, they appeared to be just another shock rock act. Behind the spooky facade of their debut, Night of the Demon, lay one of the most musically sophisticated and melodic bands of the entire movement. They were less interested in pure speed and more focused on crafting atmosphere and memorable, almost pop-like hooks within a heavy framework. Led by the charismatic vocalist Dave Hill, Demon blended the powerful riffing of with a progressive, almost theatrical sensibility. Their signature song, Night of the Demon, is a perfect example. It's a spooky, mid-tempo anthem with a killer riff and a chorus that is impossible to forget. But the album is full of gems, from the hard-driving Into the Nightmare to the surprisingly poignant ballad Liar. They had a knack for writing memorable hooks and atmospheric arrangements that set them apart from the more straightforward bands of the era, incorporating keyboards and layered vocals in a way that was far more ambitious than their peers. Their overtly demonic image, however, proved to be both a blessing and a curse. It got them noticed, but also led to controversy and limited airplay from conservative outlets. For their third album, The Plague, they abandoned the spooky shtick for a more political, socially conscious direction, a move that further confused their original fan base but resulted in what many consider to be their artistic masterpiece. Demon was a band of brilliant songwriters who never quite found the right niche, too melodic for the hardcore thrashers and too weird for the mainstream. Their first two albums remain absolute classics of the NWO BHM, a perfect blend of horror show fun and impeccable musicianship. While Demon flirted with demonic imagery, our next band sailed straight into Viking lore, pioneering an entire subgenre of epic northern mythology-themed metal. A heavy load, long before Viking metal became a recognized subgenre, two brothers in Sweden were forging steel and crafting anthems about Norse gods, mighty warriors, and epic battles. That band was Heavy Load. Formed in 1976 by brothers Ragne and Styrbjörn Wahlquist, they are widely considered to be one of the very first, if not the first, Viking metal bands. Their debut, Full Speed at High Level, was a raw slice of hard rock, but it was on subsequent albums like Death or Glory and Stronger Than Evil that their epic vision truly came to life, creating a blueprint for countless Scandinavian bands to follow. Heavy Load's music was pure, unadulterated heavy metal, full of powerful, galloping riffs, twin guitar harmonies, and rousing anthemic choruses. Songs like "The Guitar Is My Sword" and "Stronger Than Evil" are glorious, chest-thumping declarations of metal purpose, dripping with a sincere love for their subject matter. The Wahlquist brothers handled almost everything themselves: vocals, guitars, drums, and production, giving their music a unique and singular vision. They often performed in fur pelts and armor, fully embracing the warrior aesthetic their music espoused, making them a striking visual act in a scene dominated by denim and leather. Despite being hugely influential in their home country and across Scandinavia, they never achieved widespread recognition elsewhere. Their albums had spotty distribution, making them prized possessions for die-hard collectors. They were a band operating in their own world, crafting a unique sound that was years ahead of its time. Did you know that the Wahlquist brothers eventually founded their own recording studio, Thunderlode Studios, which became an important hub for the burgeoning Swedish metal scene in the 80s? Recording early works for bands like Candlemass and Morbid, Heavy Load were true pioneers, the forefathers of a sound that would later be carried on by bands like Bathory and Amon Amarth. From the Viking longships of Sweden, we head back to the industrial heartland of England for a band with deep ties to Black Sabbath, whose progressive, jazzy proto-metal was tragically lost to time. 6. Necromandus. What if a band combined the doomy riffs of Black Sabbath with the complex, jazzy virtuosity of bands like Mahavishnu Orchestra? That was Necromandus. This band from Cumbria, UK, was discovered and managed by none other than Black Sabbath's legendary guitarist, Tony Iommi. He was so impressed that he took them under his wing and produced their debut album, Orexis of Death. The album is a stunning and unique piece of early progressive metal, a sound so eclectic it's a miracle it even exists. Featuring the incredible, fluid bass playing of Barry Baz Dunnery and the powerful, soulful vocals of Bill Branch, Necromandus had a sound unlike any of their peers. Their songs were long, complex, and full of intricate time signature changes and jaw-dropping instrumental passages that shifted from heavy doom to frantic jazz fusion on a dime. Tracks like Mogadissimo and the title track are a whirlwind of technical brilliance, but they never lose their heavy, driving groove. This was a band of 4 master musicians operating at the peak of their abilities, with the guidance of a metal god who encouraged their strangest impulses. So what happened? In one of the most tragic stories of the era, just as the album was completed and the band was poised for a tour opening for Black Sabbath, their vocalist, Bill Branch, quit unexpectedly. The departure completely derailed their momentum, and their label, Vertigo, decided to shelve the completed album. It remained unreleased for nearly 2 decades, a mythical lost album known only to the most hardcore collectors. Listening to it today is a bittersweet experience, a glimpse of a truly brilliant and unique band that was stopped dead in its tracks right at the finish line. Our next band also operated in a realm of mystery, a faceless studio project from the U.S. that created some of the most atmospheric and beautifully crafted epic metal of the 80s. 7. Warlord. In the early 80s, a mysterious band known only as Warlord began appearing in the pages of rock magazines like Kerrang! And Circus. There were no photos of the members, only fantasy-style artwork and the cryptic names, the Destroyer guitarist William J. Sammis and Thunderchild drummer Mark Zonder. Their music, released on the EP Deliver Us, was as enigmatic and epic as their image, creating an aura of mystique that was irresistible to fans searching for something deeper. Warlord's sound was a unique blend of European-style melodic metal and grand cinematic arrangements. Sammis was a master songwriter, crafting intricate, multi-layered songs filled with soaring guitar melodies, atmospheric keyboard textures, and a profound sense of melancholy and triumph. Songs like Child of the Damned and Lucifer's Hammer are not just headbangers, they are miniature epic films for the ears. Paired with Mark Zonder's incredibly creative and powerful drumming, which often acted as a lead instrument, Warlord created a sound that was instantly recognizable and deeply emotional. Their refusal to play live and their mysterious, studio-bound nature made them a true cult act. They were a band to be experienced on vinyl, a personal journey for the listener rather than a communal concert experience. They released only one full-length album, and the Cannons of Destruction have begun, before disappearing, further cementing their legendary and enigmatic status. The album even came with a VHS tape of music videos, a pioneering move for such an underground band. Warlord proved that you didn't need a raucous stage show to be heavy. True power could be found in masterful songwriting and pure, unadulterated atmosphere. While Warlord was a thinking man's epic metal band, our next entry was the Thinking Man's Band, a group whose complex, intelligent songs were light years ahead of their peers. 8. Satan, https www.youtube.com/wattage visual p4 evnrhhk2en Satan to topic. With a name like Satan, you'd expect blasphemous lyrics and simple, brutal riffing. What you get with this legendary band from Newcastle is something entirely different and far more impressive. Some of the most complex, technical, and forward-thinking heavy metal of the entire era. Their debut, Court in the Act, is a landmark album that still sounds fresh and innovative today, a stunning display of musicianship that challenged the very definition of the genre at the time. While their peers were writing simple songs about rocking and rolling, Satan was crafting intricate, multi-part epics with sophisticated lyrical themes and jaw-dropping musicianship. The twin guitar attack of Russ Tippins and Steve Ramsey was light years ahead of anyone else, weaving together complex harmonies and razor-sharp riffs that predicted the rise of technical thrash and progressive metal. Combined with the powerful, clean vocals of Brian Ross, their sound was a stunning display of both brains and brawn. Tracks like Blades of Steel and Trial by Fire are masterclasses in controlled, technical aggression, more akin to a finely tuned engine of destruction than a blunt instrument. Their controversial name certainly didn't help their commercial prospects, and their complex sound was likely too much for mainstream audiences looking for simple, fist-pumping anthems. The band went through several name and lineup changes, even briefly changing their name to Blind Fury, further confusing any potential audience. For those in the know, however, Court in the Act is considered one of the absolute best albums of the entire movement, a work of startling originality and brilliance that proved heavy metal could be as intelligent as it was powerful. From the technical brilliance of the UK, we now travel to California for a band so fiercely independent and uncompromising that they became the ultimate symbol of the metal underground. 9. Brokus Helm. In a world of commercial aspirations and changing trends, there is Brokus Helm. For over 4 decades, this San Francisco power trio has waged a lonely war for their own unique brand of true metal, completely uncompromising and utterly oblivious to outside pressures. Their debut, Into Battle, is a raw, chaotic, and glorious slice of epic heavy metal. It's the sound of a garage band with the ambition of composing a Wagnerian opera, filled with a passion that is both infectious and inspiring. Brokus Helm's music is a quirky and unique brew of early speed metal, epic fantasy themes, and a raw, almost punk rock energy. Their songs are full of strange time changes, wild, untamed guitar solos from Bobby Wright, and the distinctive, passionate vocals of bassist Jim Schumacher. Tracks like Into the Ithelstone and the title track are pure, unadulterated pulp fantasy brought to life with a ferocious, joyful energy. They famously turned down multiple record deals because they were not offered full creative control, choosing obscurity over compromise at every turn. Their DIY ethos is legendary. After being disappointed with the production on their debut, they took matters into their own hands, building their own home studio to record their second album, the 1994 masterpiece Black Death. This process took them over a decade, a testament to their unwavering commitment to their vision. They would forge their own armor and weapons for photo shoots, embodying their music in a way few bands ever could. Brokus Helm is the living embodiment of the underground spirit, a band that plays for the love of metal and nothing else. While Brokus Helm built their own studio, our next band was built around a real-life family, a father and son duo who created some of the most authentic and occult-laden doom metal imaginable. 10. Pagan Altar. In the late 70s, as the was dawning, a band called Pagan Altar was playing a style of music that seemed to come from another time. They blended the doomy, riff-centric worship of Black Sabbath with the pastoral, folk-inflected vibes of 70s British rock, creating a sound that was utterly unique and deeply atmospheric. The band was a family affair, led by Alan Jones on guitar and his son, Terry Jones, on vocals, giving their creative partnership a rare and powerful dynamic. They recorded a full album's worth of material in 1982, a collection of songs steeped in genuine English occultism and folklore. The songs were dark, melodic, and atmospheric, with Terry's haunting vocals and Alan's masterful, doomy riffs creating a powerful, mystical mood. But no label was interested. The demos were circulated on cassette tapes, becoming the stuff of underground legend, a release known only as the Pagan Altar tape, but the band eventually broke up, their masterpiece unreleased and unheard by the wider world. Years later, in 1998, that legendary session was finally given an official release as the album Judgment of the Dead. The response from the now global doom metal scene was ecstatic. Here was a lost classic, a missing link between 70s proto-doom and the modern scene. The band reformed and finally received the recognition they had been denied decades earlier, touring and recording new material to widespread acclaim. Pagan Altar's story is a beautiful tale of vindication, proving that true art will eventually find its audience, no matter how long it takes. From the family-led occultism of Pagan Altar, we now journey back to the 60s for a band whose sound, dominated by a distorted violin, was so heavy it bordered on terrifying. 11. High Tide. If you're searching for the absolute heaviest band of the 1960s, your search might end with High Tide. This British band's debut, Sea Shanties, is an album of such ferocious, dark, and heavy intensity that it makes many of their more famous contemporaries sound tame by comparison. What set High Tide apart was their unique instrumentation. The interplay between Simon House's haunting, distorted electric violin, and Tony Hill's crushing, fuzzed-out guitar created a sound that was utterly unique and menacing. The violin wasn't a gentle classical addition. It was a weapon, played with as much aggression as the guitar. This was not gentle, pastoral prog. This was a sonic maelstrom. Released in 1969, tracks like Futilist's Lament and Death Warmed Up are dense, complex, and overwhelmingly powerful. Hill's vocals were raw and desperate, adding to the album's apocalyptic and gothic atmosphere. They were playing a style of music that wouldn't be fully explored again until the rise of gothic and doom metal more than a decade later. They were true originals, crafting a sound that had no precedent, a vortex of dark, psychedelic energy. Their music was perhaps too intense, too dark, and too complex for audiences at the time. While they released a second album, High Tide, in 1970, they never gained any commercial traction and soon disbanded. Interestingly, violinist Simon House would go on to have a much more visible career, joining the ranks of Hawkwind and later playing with David Bowie. But for those two albums, High Tide created a sound that still feels shocking and powerful today. They are the definition of a band ahead of its time, a dark and stormy secret whispered among connoisseurs of heavy music. Our next band is the undisputed king of American cult metal, a group from Kansas led by a man whose strange voice and epic storytelling created a universe all its own. 12. Manila Road. For over 35 years, Manila Road was the torchbearer for a unique brand of epic, often bizarre, heavy metal. Hailing from Wichita, Kansas, they were the ultimate cult band, led by the singular vision of founder, guitarist, and vocalist Mark the Shark Shelton. His nasal, almost cartoonish vocal style is one of the most divisive and instantly recognizable in all of metal, a love-it-or-hate-it quality that defined the band's sound and acted as a gatekeeper, ensuring only the most dedicated would enter their world. From their raw beginnings on their 1980 debut, Invasion, the band evolved into masters of the epic. Albums like Crystal Logic and Open the Gates are sprawling masterpieces of fantasy and sci-fi storytelling, with Shelton's intricate winding guitar solos and odd-time signatures creating a sound that was truly their own. They were writing songs about Conan, Cthulhu, and ancient mythology with a level of passion and sincerity that was unmatched. They were the bards of the metal world, spinning tales for a small but fanatically devoted following that treated their albums like sacred texts. Their geographical isolation in Kansas and their steadfast refusal to compromise their weird vision kept them from ever breaking through to a wider audience. They were a band passed around on dubbed cassettes, a secret society for those who wanted their metal to be more than just riffs and solos. Manila Road is a testament to the power of a singular vision, a band that created an entire universe for anyone brave enough to enter it. From the plains of Kansas, we now go to the misty lands of California for a band whose doom-laden metal was directly inspired by fantasy literature and fronted by a man who sounded like a dying Nazgul. 13. Cirith Ungol. The Lord of the Rings, Cirith Ungol was a band that lived and breathed sword and sorcery. Their sound was a strange and powerful brew of doom metal, traditional heavy metal, and a dark, almost punkish energy. But what truly set them apart and cemented their legendary status was the voice of frontman Tim Baker. His raw, tortured, and completely unhinged shriek is one of the most extreme and unique vocal performances in metal history, a sound that evokes ancient beasts and dying warriors. On classic albums like King of the Dead and One Foot in Hell, the band crafted a sound that was as epic and terrifying as the Frank Frazetta and Michael Whelan paintings that adorned their album covers. Guitarist Jerry Fogel laid down some of the most powerful and sludgy riffs of the 80s, while Baker wailed like a man possessed, telling dark tales of wizards, warriors, and cosmic horror. They were too weird for the mainstream, too doomy for the speed metal crowd, and too raw for the polished AOR scene, making them a perfect storm of commercial unviability. Their uncompromising vision and Baker's challenging vocals relegated them to the deepest corners of the underground. The band broke up in the early 90s, frustrated by a lack of recognition, leaving behind a flawless and influential 4-album legacy. Their subsequent reunion in the 2010s was met with a hero's welcome from a global underground that had finally caught up to their bizarre genius. Cirith Ungol is a monument to the strange, a perfect band for anyone who likes their fantasy, dark, and their metal weirder. Our next band was also an American original, a power trio from Philadelphia, who recorded a masterpiece of proto-doom, only to have it shelved by their label in favor of more commercial material. 14. Bang! What if an American band had released an album that sounded remarkably like Black Sabbath's debut right around the same time, but got lost in the shuffle? That's the story of Bang. In 1971, this power trio from Philadelphia wrote and recorded an ambitious concept album of heavy, doomy proto-metal titled Death of a Country. It was a dark, reflective piece of work, full of heavy riffs and introspective lyrics that touched on themes of war and social decay. However, their label, Capitol Records, felt it was uncommercial and refused to release it. Instead, they had the band record a more straightforward hard rock album, which became their self-titled debut a year later. That album, Bang, was still a fantastic piece of work, full of heavy riffs and catchy hooks, and even spawned a minor hit with the song Questions. But it was that lost debut that marks their true genius. Songs like The Queen and the title track are pure, unadulterated early doom metal with a raw power that is simply undeniable. They had the authentic sound right at the very beginning, but were robbed of the chance to present their true identity to the world. The label's decision effectively neutered the band before they even had a chance. The classic story of record label interference kneecapped them from the start. They were marketed as a generic rock act and got lost in a crowded field. Decades later, when their original demos and the Death of a Country album were finally released properly, fans and critics were stunned. Here was a band that had the sound and the vision to be pioneers, but were undone by a lack of faith from the people who were supposed to support them. They are a textbook case of what could have been, a ghost of a brilliant career that never was. And now we arrive at our final, most infamous entry, a British band who took Black Sabbath's blueprint and pushed it to its most extreme, controversial, and gloriously sludgy conclusion. 15. Witchfinder General. In the midst of the fast and furious new wave of British heavy metal, one band dared to be slow. Witchfinder General was the absolute antithesis of the movement they were a part of, while bands like Iron Maiden and Saxon were racing to be faster and more technical. Witchfinder General was worshiping at the altar of early Black Sabbath, crafting a sound so slow, so heavy, and so sludgy that they are now considered one of the most important pioneers of the entire doom metal genre. They were doom before doom was a recognized style. Their 1982 debut, Death Penalty, is a masterpiece of filth and fury. The riffs are colossal, the production is raw, and Phil Cope's guitar tone sounds like it's being dredged up from a swamp. Zeeb Parks' vocals are a snotty, punk-inflected snarl, giving the band a unique, street-level aggression that separated them from Sabbath's more mystical vibe. Songs like Invisible Hate and the title track are pure, unadulterated doom, a celebration of the heavy riff in its most primal, glorious form. They were not just imitating Sabbath, they were mainlining its darkest essence. The band courted controversy with their album covers, which featured graphic, exploitation film-style imagery that got their records banned in many stores. The cover of Death Penalty, featuring model Joanne Latham in a mock witch-burning scene outside a church, became particularly infamous and defined their notorious reputation. This, combined with a sound that was completely out of step with the times, ensured they would remain a deeply underground act. They broke up after their second album, leaving behind a small but perfect discography that would become a sacred text for future generations of doom and stoner metal bands. Witchfinder General is the ultimate cult band, influential, controversial, and uncompromisingly beautifully heavy.